Well, I just wanted to welcome our members of the public. I know that that we're a couple of minutes late. We just wrapped up our Alameda County Water District Finance Authority meeting, and we're having a little bit of a technical glitch in one of the computers here. So we will get going with the meeting just in a moment. Okay, we're back.
Okay. So today is January 8th, 2026. This is our first board meeting of the calendar year for the Alameda County Water District. We will call this meeting to order at 6:07 p.m. We'll begin with item number 1. Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Here.
Huang,
Here.
Gunther,
Here.
Sethy,
Here.
and Akbari.
Here. Director Huang, will you lead us in the salute to the flag, please?
Allegiance to the flag,
States
of America, to the republic, it stands, indivisible, liberty and justice.
Thank you. Before we get into the meat of our agenda, I will turn it to our general manager to see if he has any comments.
Great. Yes, thank you, President Akbari. Just a few sort of housekeeping remarks. Just want to welcome everybody to our very first official ACWD board meeting of 2026. It's nice to see you all. And I also wanted to welcome our members of the public to our meeting this evening. My name is Ed Stevenson. I serve as the district's general manager. Members of the public may participate in this board meeting in person or remotely by either using the Zoom application or by telephone. Any member of the public present in person who wishes to make comments may approach the speaker's podium at the appropriate time. For those participating remotely, note that the meeting agenda, staff reports, and presentation materials for this meeting are all available on the district's website at acwd.org. You may reference the instructions at the top of the agenda for how to participate using the controls in the Zoom app or your dial pad if participating by telephone audio. This board meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public for future viewing. Again, thank you all for attending, and President Akbari, that completes my housekeeping remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. We'll move on to item number 3, public comments. Members of the public may address the board on any issues not listed on the agenda, which are within the purview of the Alameda County Water District. A 5-minute limit is customary. Members of the public who wish to address the board on a scheduled agenda item will be given the opportunity to do so. I don't believe we have any members of the public in person, so I'll turn to members of the public online, and I believe we have a hand up from Mr. Kelly Abreu.
Okay, thank you. I thought I'd go quickly touch on a few things. One is if you're driving around Fremont or Newark or wherever, you see these ACWD projects. They're digging up the street. There are trenches. There's a lot of equipment and all this stuff going on, and so you see all this stuff happening. But you know, one thing I have not seen in all these projects where you're digging up streets, I have not seen a house blow up. But you know, like they did in Ashland. You know, just outside of Hayward, where that video a week or two ago of the house exploding into smithereens, with the street being dug up, and there was a street construction project in front of their house. That was that. So you should pat yourselves on the back that you have not caused. You know, don't end up on the evening news like that. Also, so that's pretty good. I mean, I don't know what you do to keep the houses from blowing up, but it's you know, if you do it wrong, bad things can happen. Also, on when you're looking at all these projects in the future, I want to just run down a list of things that projects need. One is the timing. You know, like the Delta Conveyance isn't scheduled to come online for about 15 years. You know, so projects that are too far out there, you really need to be questioned. One is the cost. Some of these projects the costs are huge. One is the quality. Some of these projects, when you get finished with, treating dirty water to begin with and purifying it, then maybe the product isn't all that pure, or the salinity isn't all that low. And finally, the timing of the projects. Some of these projects, you just count, gallons per year or gallons per decade or whatever. But the timing of the deliveries is really crucial. And if you don't have storage, if you don't have the deliveries coming in during the dry season, reliably during droughts, that's the kind of deliveries that people need, and people that are hard to come by. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Abreu. Are there any other members of the public online who wish to make a comment? You may do so by raising your hand in the Zoom app. If not, we will close public comments and move on to item number 4, consent calendar. Do I have any motions on the consent calendar?
Move to amend the consent calendar with items 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4.
I'll second.
I have a comment on 5.1, or to support the action.
So maybe we want to amend that and pull 5.1 off.
I'll amend it to 5.2, 5.3, 5.4.
And I will second the amended motion.
Great. Roll call, please.
Directors Wade,
Aye.
Huang, aye. Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye.
I'll
Do
move
it.
consent calendar.
There's no need to read this into the record in 5.1. I'm prepared to move 5.1, but put it under discussion.
Okay, yeah, not a problem. We'll just take a final vote on the consent calendar, and then we'll go ahead and hit 5.1.
I'll move consent calendar as amended. Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Wade,
Aye.
Huang, aye. Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. With that, we will move to item 5.1, authorization of professional services agreement for maintenance and support services for the groundwater management system database.
I'll move for approval. Request discussion.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a contract for monitoring the groundwater basin, and it allows for amendments and expansion and modifications of that program. Encourage us to take a look at the need for monitoring, or the value of monitoring wells adjacent to the bay. We have we recently had some high tide periods. It would be interesting to see if there was any influence on the groundwater table as a result of the tidal fluctuations. As a predictor of what might happen as we have continuing climate change and sea level rise. Currently, it appears to be kind of a blind. We don't have a lot of understanding of what the implications are to impacts in the groundwater basin near the shoreline. How far inland those tidal actions effects are. And so I would encourage us with this contract, utilizing this contract, to find a way to collect that information. It may require the establishment of some new monitoring. Second, our area of responsibility goes all the way up into Hayward, where there have been a recent transaction between HARD, the Hayward Area Recreation District, and the East Bay Regional Park District for more activities in that section. And Hayward is talking about building at least one section, an ecotone levee, in order to prevent surface flooding. The elevation of that levee would be of interest to the board, but again, there appears to be some tidal action, including areas that are not within our water service area, but our responsibility for conservation. And I would hope that that's included in our data collection.
Yeah, and maybe just a quick clarification. We understand the suggestion and the request. I just want to make sure for the record that this item has to do with a system that we use to collect data and to manage data. and less about, actual monitoring work or well drilling, but we understand what the suggestion is.
And the contract allows us to expand modify the areas the data's being collected.
Well, this contract doesn't cover data collection in the field or monitoring. That would be a different effort. But we understand the suggestion and
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Director Weed. Any other questions or comments from the board? If not, I believe we have a motion and a second.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang, aye. Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. With that, we will move on to item 5.5, authorization to execute amendment to power purchase agreement for clean energy program at Whitfield Reservoir. I'll turn it to Mr.
Great. Thank you, President Akbari. And this is part of one of our long journeys that the district has been engaged in for some time, making some very good progress. But of course, along the way, there's always adjustments that need to be made. And so for this item, I'll turn it over to our Director of Engineering and Technology, Mr. Huang.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, board members, staff, and community members. As you may recall, the district started working on a clean energy program, which had two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. The phase 1 part of the project was focused on getting into a power purchase agreement with a solar developer to retrofit or install solar panels on 4 facilities. That includes the headquarter facility here, the Mayhew Reservoir, the Whitfield Reservoir, and then Newark Desalination Facility. I'm happy to report that the work has been completed on 3 of those 4 facilities, nearly completed, I should say, 4 of those 4 facilities. We had a bit of a delay on the Whitfield Reservoir site because of a previously not anticipated easement, gas line easement, PG&E gas line easement that forced the team to redesign the layout of these PV photovoltaic cells, which did result in a reduction of the production capacity. We worked with the solar developer for some time, and we've been able to agree on some terms, amendment terms of the power purchase agreement. The good news is that it's not going to result in any price increase for the district, but there's some modifications to the terms that have been reviewed by our legal team as well as staff. And we are recommending the board to approve this third amendment to the power purchase agreement. With that, I'm going to read the summary of the staff report and recommendation, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. The district's clean energy program, phase 1 program, will implement solar photovoltaic systems at 4 district facilities. In October 2021, the district executed power purchase agreements for phase 1 sites. As I mentioned, headquarters, Mayhew Reservoir, Newark Desalination Facility, and Whitfield Reservoir, and the phase 2 sites, which are Alameda Reservoir and Dakota Reservoir sites, with the company DG West 1 LLC. The phase 1 PPAs were previously amended twice to address change economic and other conditions, and construction is now nearing completion at 3 phase 1 sites. The PPA for the 4th phase 1 site, which is the Whitfield Reservoir, now requires an amendment to address necessary modifications to the proposed photovoltaic layout necessitated by a restrictive easement on the property, and the assignment of the PPA for the Whitfield Reservoir from DG West 1 LLC to DG Alameda 2 LLC. This item was most recently reviewed with the Engineering and Information Technology Committee on December 17, 2025. Board authorization of execution of the amendment will help meet the district's strategic plan goal number 1, maintain and improve cost effectiveness and value of district services. With that, staff's recommendation is by motion to authorize the general manager to execute a third amendment to the power purchase agreement for Whitfield Reservoir with DG Alameda 2 LLC for the Clean Energy Program, job number 10093. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woke. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
More of a comment. I had the pleasure of hearing this item in the ENIT committee meeting in December, and we don't really have that much choice except to sign this agreement because it is still overall positive for the district, right? And we have to make this change because of events outside our control. Well, not name like PG&E. Anyway, there is a request. Once things settle down, I would like staff to bring an item back to the board on the status of our RESPEC application because the financial viability of a lot of our project is contingent on being covered under RESPEC, and we'll know there's a cap. And they potentially could run out of money. So that is more of a request about bringing back and being accountable to our public about these financial investments that we have made and what's the status. So thank you.
We'll certainly do that.
Comments? No, I had the committee.
I have a couple of comments. I did read through the engineering committee report and observed the right of way that PG&E has through the property. And I would like to ask that properly be demarcated at the site. What are the facilities that are underground, both for the benefit of the district and for PG&E, anyone else that comes across the property. Number two, I was the first to propose the solar activities back in 2018. It's now taken 8 years to get through these projects, and I would very much like it if we had a public affair at the conclusion of the installation of the solar facilities at Whitfield Reservoir, inviting in local officials and other members of the public for the dedication of these solar facilities. The city of Fremont has already used the amount of our solar energy current and future production in their applications for grants, green grants, not only statewide, but nationally. And they've observed in multiple city council meetings that we will be the largest producer of solar energy in the Tri-City area and in Fremont, maybe as much as 25% of all the solar power in Fremont. So I really think it is worthy of some attention and some planning by staff ahead of time for such a public affair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, comments? So solar power has yet to reach grid parity. And part of that problem is to reflect in the duck curve that there's such an abundance of power during a clear day that the state of California has to pay people to take the extra power. So the economic efficiencies of solar power have yet to be able to meet a business plan that requires government subsidies. The efficiency of the panels themselves is another issue. Many of the earlier people got involved in solar panel, so they just quickly realized that they could save money by ripping out the panels that they had recently installed and putting in more high efficient panels. It was a better business deal. It's a wonderful faith-based policymaking, and the state of California has bought into it. There's money to help subsidize this effort. But in reality, it doesn't make financial sense. I'm not going to oppose it because it is in line with our current feel-good policymaking or politically correct policymaking, but it does not necessarily meet any business plan.
Thank you. Director Weed, you and I are planning on taking a drive down to Fresno to the WELL conference. We are going to have a considerable debate on this because I totally disagree with you. And I did check with staff to make sure that we are getting the absolute state-of-the-art solar equipment being put into the field. And we have a thorough business analysis by our finance department that proves what the return on investment is from doing this. It's not faith-based. It is with the idea that we do something that is clean for the community and provides a long-term benefit to the district. So it's not faith-based. It's based in science, and solar and wind are now producing, a considerable amount of power for California. So I absolutely and totally disagree with you.
I would suggest that our efforts should be 24/7 power resources as a utility district responsible for 24/7 operations. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and questions. I will just say that I wholeheartedly agree with Director Sethy's defense of this program. And I actually would concur with Director Sethy that given the size of this project, I think it would be good for us, a great opportunity for us to do something for the public through public affairs to bring awareness to this project.
That is indeed in the plan. And in fact, in this contract that you are considering an amendment to, the contract itself, our agreement with the solar developer requires that they participate in that and support it. So that's definitely part of the plan.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I'll now turn to members of the public. If you have any questions or comments, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. And I see we have a hand up from Mr. Ken Nishimura. Mr. Nishimura, you can unmute yourself. There we go.
Yes. Okay. I wasn't planning to make a comment on this, but the discussion between Director Weed and Director Sethy prompted me to chime in. I think there are elements of both directors are correct. I mean, this is a very good deal for the district, but by the fact that the district is applying for and hopefully receives approval for the RESBEC program, right? And this is a tariff that has been mandated by the PUC onto PG&E that is very favorable for the district, right? That has this situation where it has acreage upon which they can deposit a solar farm, and consumption of electricity at other locations within the district. And the RESBEC program allows basically generating credits at one location and burning those exact credits at the other place. It's basically virtually being able to put a solar panel or a solar system where the energy is being consumed without physically being there. So, it's a great program. It is such a good deal that there's a cap to the number of megawatts that can be interconnected under this program. And should the district be successful in getting it, yes, it's a financial no-brainer for the district, and I support it. I mean, Director Weed is correct that if you look at the state as a whole, there are situations where solar farms, large utility scale solar farms, have to be curtailed due to grid capacity issues, right? And that's a totally different issue than whether or not this is a financially attractive investment for the district. So, I do support this. I think it's a good thing for the district. Even though PG&E has recently said that they're lowering the marginal cost of electricity, I think it's pretty clear based on other macro events that are going on that being able to generate one's own electricity and move the credits around the district is a huge win. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nishimura. Are there any other members of the public who wish to ask a question or make a comment on this item? If not, I will turn back to the board and see if we have a motion.
I will move support of the action calendar item 5.5, and I'm I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but I'm a little proud that, I encourage the district and our board and staff to take a look at these things already, 8 and 10 years back. And so it's nice to see it come to fruition.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Director Swede,
Aye.
Huang, aye. Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. With that, we'll move on to item 5.6, resolution approving the Alameda County Water District Strategic Plan 2025 to 2030. I'll turn it.
Great. Thank you, President Akbari. And I don't know that this item really needs a lot of introduction. You all have been working on this for all of last year. There's been a lot of engagement by the board in this process. There's not a lot that we're going to share with you all this evening that's new. I think the key thing that is new and different since our last meeting on this back in November is that the implementation action plan is a little bit further along than it was. The strategic plan itself is substantially the same as what you've seen in the past. What we're going to do this evening is kind of do an overview, a fairly broad overview, but we did feel like it was important to package it all together at the time that we're asking the board to consider approval of the strategic plan itself. One of the key things I just wanted to emphasize is that what we're going to be asking the board to consider approval for is the strategic plan. That's where the policy is. That's where the big picture priorities are defined. The details in terms of tactics, the details in terms of metrics that we're going to be monitoring and specific targets for individual line items in the implementation action plan. Those are all in the implementation action plan. What we did was, because we received that request last time, was provide you all with a copy of the sort of current status of the implementation action plan, at least the status as of late last week. It's actually a little different today because we wanted to make sure that you all saw as much detail as we could muster in terms of how we're approaching each of those policies and each of those priorities that the board has been working on over the last year. And so those are all in your packet. They're on the dais here in the boardroom. For those online, they're in the board packet on the website. And we have with us to step the board and the public through this topic. We have Jackie McLeod, who's Special Assistant to the General Manager, who has really been the point person on this, working together very closely with Ethan Birch as sort of co-project manager, working with the board, working with the public, and doing a whole lot of work with staff. And so I will just turn it over to Jackie to get us started on our relatively short presentation and then a recommendation for the board.
Thank you, General Manager Stevenson, members of the board, staff, and members of the public. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to reviewing our strategic plan update, and then Ethan will be presenting the Appendix A, the implementation action plan. So tonight we're going to review our draft Alameda County Water District Strategic Plan 2025 to 2030. I realize we're in 2026, but we started this in 2025. We're also going to present an overview of the draft implementation action plan. It's located in Appendix A of the strategic plan, and I want to remind everyone it's a living document that will be adaptively managed by staff, meaning it's a living document. It's not going to stay stagnant. It's not going to sit on a shelf. We're going to be updating it often. The document is always available to the board so that you can reference it, see the changes that we've made and asked us questions, but no board action is needed on the implementation action plan. You may hear us use the acronym IAP when we reference the implementation action plan. So if you hear us say that, it's the same document. For tonight, we're going to consider approval of the Alameda County Water District Strategic Plan 2025-2030 plan. So where have we been? We have been on quite the journey over this past year. We started with our board workshops. We also did a lot of internal and external outreach to sort of gain an understanding of what needed to go into the update as well as what needed to be modified and changed. We presented to a few outside groups like Rotaries clubs. We presented to city councils as well. And then we had our internal engagement with our own staff that really helped us identify our priorities. Where we are now is we're reviewing the proposed strategic plan. We're going to provide some additional IAP details, and we're going to consider approval of the strategic plan. So what is a strategic plan? It's the high-level vision and blueprint for what the district's practices are. It sets our priorities, and that's our basis of initiatives and metric tracking. It's specific, concise, and actionable. What is it not? It's not about everything that we do. It's not an operations plan. It's not a wish list. It's not a task list. It's also not a plan to be left on the shelf. And it is not the Water Resources Master Plan. That is not the same document. That's not what we're talking about this evening. But the strategic plan is connected to almost every other planning effort within the district for our community. It's interconnected and integrated in everything we do. The strategic plan sets our high-level priorities that guide the district's pillars, goals, strategies, tactics, everything we do for the community on behalf of the district. It's connected to the Water Resources Master Plan, our budget financial plan, our capital improvement plan, engineering report, and emergency response and preparedness. Each of these plans will reference the strategic plan within them. So again, to go over how are we going to use the strategic plan, it links our missions, vision, and values to our everyday work and our priorities. It communicates our priorities throughout the district, and it informs all those district-wide plans. It establishes our clear objectives that drive our approach to initiatives, and it's a tool for tracking performance against metrics. It keeps our staff time and effort, and more importantly, our ratepayer funds on target and focused on our limited resources. Are there any questions so far? Any clarifications needed? Okay, I'm going to keep moving along. Something we did with the update that was very novel was the board, along with our staff and our community, updated our mission statement. So we have a new mission statement to provide our customers with reliable, sustainable, high-quality water service at a reasonable price. The main change in our mission statement for this update is we centered our customers right at the beginning of our mission statement, which is how we operate as a district anyway, so we recognize that in our mission statement. We also have a new vision statement, quality water, thriving community. Simple and short, but communicates exactly what we do. And we have core values. Each of our core values has a specific definition that we've reviewed in past board meetings and workshops. So I'm just going to go over the 6 that we have: service, safety, trust, resilience, collaboration, and stewardship. The definitions are within the draft strategic plan that's in the board packet as well, if you want to review those definitions. So before I go on any further, any questions on that review? Anything? All right, let's talk about the new structure of this strategic plan. So the major plan elements, the structure now includes pillars, goals, and strategies. We have our new vision, mission, and values, which we just saw and reviewed. Those are all board driven. You set the standard for what our priorities and our main goals are within the strategic plan. On the other side, we have how are we going to accomplish those goals and strategies and those outcomes and metrics. That has been staff-driven through our implementation action plan. That's where the tactics, core metrics, outcomes, and our timelines for those actions to be completed live. You do have that in your board packet as an outline in front of you. Again, just reminding everyone that's a living document. So what you see in draft form right now may not exist next week. It may have changed. Our plan structure, again, we have...
I hope you will update us on any changes. when they do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Since it's draft right now, and Ethan will be presenting on it in just a little bit, we just met with our last subject matter expert group today. So we are just finishing our major meetings, and our plan is to, I'll get there, but we're going to be setting our baseline within this first quarter, and we plan on having a report out to the board. So absolutely, this is your strategic plan as the board, and we're going to bring you along with us. We're not going to leave you in the dark. Any other clarifications or questions right now? Okay, so plan structure, I'll go over it again. The board action sets the strategic planning elements, which we've redefined as pillars, goals, and strategies. We have board oversight, which is what Director Sethy is talking about, over those staff actions that drive the implementation action plan where the tactics and core metrics live. So we will be informing the board as those are updated. So we are changing the structure of the plan. So I'm going to walk through the 2018 plan compared to how it would sit within our new plan structure. So some of our examples from our existing strategic plan and dashboards include the old strategic goal of number 4 was improve our workforce recruitment, maintain retention, and enhance employee engagement. That was the goal. It then fed into the strategy of how were we going to accomplish that, and the tactics to get us there, and then what were our metrics and outcomes that we were going to measure our success to reaching that goal. That structure, even though we've changed the title of it, that is still how we're going to measure if we're reaching our goals. We're still going to use that method of our metrics and outcomes. Okay? So the board sets our pillars, goals, and strategies. Staff is the one with input from the board who sets the tactics. And then the staff will be implementing and measuring the metrics and outcomes. So I'm going to do a quick comparison of our new pillars that we've established. They're actually not new. We have our main 5 pillars: cost effectiveness and value, water supply, finance, workforce, and communication. We have a new pillar of emergency preparedness. So what was the change between 2018 and 2025? 2018 set the foundation for what we needed to do and our strategies. In the 2025 update, we have enhancements, we have reinforcement of those strategies, but we've also expanded a lot of our practices within each of these pillars. We recognize that emergency preparedness needed to be pulled out. It used to be embedded within cost effectiveness and value, but heightened awareness of natural hazards and any other type of emergency preparedness, we felt that a standalone pillar with your approval was the right move. So we have pulled it out to elevate our detailed strategies for programmatic infrastructure, human and organizational cultural readiness for emergency preparedness. I'm not going to read through each of these comparisons. Again, they're in the board packet, but no, the big changes are in pillar 3, which is finance, where we're adding affordability and accessibility for customers, and then emergency preparedness. Same in communication, we're expanding our accessibility for our underserved communities. So again, 2018 really set the standard, and now we're saying, okay, let's enhance and expand some of these services for our community because times have changed. Any questions on the 2 comparisons? I went over it kind of fast, but okay.
I'll just pause and see if we have any questions or comments from members of the public. If not, I think we can continue.
All right. So what are our pillars, goals, and strategies? Pillar number 1 remains the same: cost effectiveness and value. Our goal is to maintain and improve the cost effectiveness, reliability, and value of district services. We have 3 strategies that sit under that pillar and goal. They're again detailed in the board packet, and you see them in front of you, so I'm not going to read through them. Pillar number 2 is water supply, with our goal: sustain a reliable, high-quality water supply for our customers. Again, we have 3 strategies that sit under that goal and pillar. Pillar number 3 is finance. Our goal is to maintain financial stability and promote transparency with our 4 strategies underneath that pillar. Pillar number 4 is workforce, with our goal to improve workforce health and safety, enhance recruitment, maintain retention, and deepen employee engagement, with our 5 strategies under that goal. Pillar number 5 is communication. Our goal is to promote clear and open communications, outreach, and engagement with customers and communities. We also have 5 strategies underneath that goal and pillar. And then finally, our new pillar is emergency preparedness and response. Our goal is to ensure organizational readiness to respond to disasters and emergencies that threaten our ability to carry out our mission, with our 4 new strategies underneath that goal and pillar. There is more detail in the draft strategic plan within your board packet on each of these strategies that goes into more detail. And with that, I will turn this over to Mr. Birch to go through the implementation action plan. Let me make sure before I step away, any questions on the strategic plan so far?
I have one. It's on slide number 19. It's for the finance department. Just for an update here. Have we submitted the popular annual financial report for any competitive award or something like that?
Yeah, so
It's our first one.
yeah, so we recently completed our second one just over the holiday period, and it was submitted to GFOA for recognition. And the first one, we did achieve GFOA recognition on the first one.
Could we make sure that each board member receives a copy of that in their mail file, please?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And my comments. We had discussed the possibility of water marketing, and that I don't see reflected in our strategic plans or concepts. So I'd encourage us, as you're having a living document, working document, that we try to articulate the potential for ACWD to become a marketeer of water, not just our own constituency.
Okay.
Next, control of the water supply to include watershed, aqueducts, and reservoirs. We're on the South Bay Aqueduct as one of our primary supplies. And we are one of 3 contractors on the South Bay Aqueduct. But encourage us, part in the implementation plan, but more importantly, in our area of responsibility, look at possibly a joint power authority to acquire, and the best way to protect your water sources is to own it. Acquire the watershed in 3 Ranch. Acquire ownership of the South Bay Aqueduct, which we've discussed in the past. We've paid for it. We want to take responsibility for operation and maintenance. I think we do. It's at the end of its service life. And the reservoir, Del Val. So, in particular. So that would be a concept in a master plan that would be appropriate for inclusion, I think, in our overall master plan. Wording is good.
Please note that you have a second director here that supports every word that Director Weed just said.
Okay. Taking notes on it.
He's not alone.
On emergency response, will be interesting to see. I'm glad to see it's a new pillar, beginning to address it, and understand that it's an organizational wide issue, and it helps to quantify what we anticipate to be the level of response, although you can't define it or plan for it, because you really don't know what. It's a contingency engineering is a totally different approach than operations and maintenance and capital construction. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just check again. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the public? Do so by raising your hand in the Zoom app. If not, then
We're
I'll
gonna,
hand it
okay,
back.
I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Birch now.
Thank you, Jackie. Good evening, everyone. All right, so I'm going to talk about the what I'll call the behind-the-scenes staff work that's been going on over the last few weeks and months as we have worked with you on developing the priorities we've been having these conversations with staff on how best to implement those priorities. So what that has become is our implementation action plan, which I will go over now with you in structure, and then in more detail, you have it in your packets. So as mentioned, this is the how. This is the actions that staff will be taking to implement the board's strategic priorities, as well as the metrics that we will be developing to ensure that we're staying on track with those priorities. This is staff developed. It is completely downstream of the board's strategic plan. This is taking a holistic look at the strategic plan, at the activities that we do as staff to keep the district running, and saying, how do we best adapt these activities to the board's priorities, and what are the gaps? What new things do we need to do to make this happen? These items that you'll see in this implementation plan were developed through internal working group meetings with subject matter experts from around the district. As alluded to earlier, these meetings are very fresh. They're ongoing. The most recent one was today. This is a living document for that reason. This is not something that we can just say today. These are the specific actions that staff will be taking for the next 5 years, because we're going to finish some of those items. And then we're going to have to reconsider how to adapt our implementation plan to our progress and make sure we continue to meet the board's priorities. So we are developing a slate of tactics, and then trying to articulate the outcomes, the ways we measure this, who owns that item, which person, which department, which division, and then when do we expect to take these actions, complete these projects, achieve these completion of these tactics. So as mentioned, the current draft, which you will note is watermarked with, it says draft on it. You'll see some TBD in there because we're still working on these things. But as I say, progress continues. Progress is made today. Progress will continue to be made. We plan on having a first kind of final iteration of this document by the end of this quarter, so that we can begin to collect data and report out on our progress beginning at the end of this quarter. So each quarter, how we will do this, we have these color-coded on track, lagging, not met color codes that we can assign to the various strategic initiatives to evaluate progress towards our objectives, towards the metrics that we've set up. And then as we collect that data, as we gain experience implementing the strategic plan, we can adjust to make sure that we are staying in the direction that the board wants us to be going. We can delete or adjust metrics as appropriate to make sure we stay operationally relevant with the data that we're collecting, and so that we can be as efficient as possible in implementing this strategic plan. Many of the items that will ultimately end up in here, whether they're metrics or strategic initiatives, are what we would consider stretch goals. We may not meet them, but the goal is to keep pushing to make sure that we're always reaching for a little bit more so that we don't leave anything on the table. And I'll reiterate again, this is a living document. This is not what's being adopted tonight. This is downstream of that document. So tonight is adopting the policy, and then this is our attempt to meet that policy with action. Any questions so far? All right. So again, the outline of this plan with some detail is in your board packet. This includes, as I mentioned, a draft version with the identified pillars, goals, and strategies. And then under each pillar, goal, and strategy, we have those ensuing items: the tactics, the description of what we're doing, the envisioned outcome, the core metrics, the owners of those items, and then the kind of rough timeline. In some of these cases, the timeline is something like ongoing, because these are actions that we expect to be doing every day in perpetuity as running the district. In some cases, it's very specific. It's, we expect to do this in May of 2027. So you'll see some variety there, but that's the level of detail we are working on and iterating as we go. And then we're working to create a baseline for this first year. So over time, we'll continue to refine, as I said, but we're still in that developmental stage, and we'll continue to kind of prove it out as we go and make sure that we stay aligned with the strategic plan.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
It's more of a comment. Now, remember, I come out of Silicon Valley corporate world. And I understand the difference between that corporate world and government agencies. So, but in the corporate world, we set incentives and bonuses for accomplishing the things that are of priority to an organization. And there are penalties for where you lag or you're in the red on things. Is there some way that we are trying to, put people's feet to the fire to make sure that things are happening? That you just can't have everything lagging without any cost to the staff. And I'm not saying this in jest. I mean it seriously.
Yeah, and it's a fair question, right? Especially when you hear things like, hey, we've got stretch goals too, so there's gonna be red, right? So we try and make a distinction between stretch goals and sort of minimum standards, and you'll see, I think the board's familiar with sort of how we track these things. So the question is, if we don't have the same tools in the public sector that the private sector might use, how do we make sure that we're forwarding these things? And I would say the first most important thing is to be really clear as to what the expectation is. And so that's frankly the key function here. Really clear as to what the expectation is. And then, hold groups and individuals as needed to the expectation that these are to be accomplished, and which is why we do a quarterly review of all these, and we sit around a table and we talk about what's working and what's not working and so forth. So we don't have the same carrots, we do have sticks. We have formalized ways of trying to ensure that people will redirect their focus on certain priorities. And so we'll use those tools as needed, but it is a different world than the corporate world. But functionally, though, we're trying to accomplish the same thing. But job one is be clear and have a standard and set it.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that our strategic plan is not a dream plan.
Right.
That it is realistic, that people believe that they can accomplish the things that we're citing to do in the future. And I realize it's very different from the corporate world where you can provide incentives and bonuses and everything else. And then there are costs too on the other side, on the downside, if you don't meet your quarterly performance, that's expected of you.
Yeah,
I think our law firm has the same kind of standards, right?
Yeah, and I think oftentimes you'll actually see the word stretch goal next to certain items. It's just, we feel like it's important to not have the bar be set so that everybody's getting green all the time, right? That means we're not really pushing. And I think the organization, we've been working with this format for some time now, so I think folks are pretty much familiar with that. So we're okay with not, being meeting every stretch goal, but we always want to be pushing a little bit more where it makes sense, not everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Pardon me for the interruption, Ethan.
Not at all.
Excellent presentation so far.
All right, so I'll just run through a couple of examples really quickly. Again, we've got the full version as it currently stands in the packet, but just a couple of representative samples here to kind of illustrate the format and what we're talking about. So at the top, you'll see it's identified by pillar, goal, strategy, and then nested under that, so you can trace it up or down. You've got the tactic of capital improvement program execution with the strategic initiative of ensure progress in the capital program to meet overall capital infrastructure improvement objectives. A quick description, the outcome being completion of capital projects, and then a metric assigned to that, as well as an owner, and then an annual timeline. So this is an ongoing thing that we're kind of always working on it, and there's annual reviews and so on and so forth. So this is an example of how something that is a normal operations for the district, how we can trace that back to the strategic plan and then assign some metrics to it to ensure that we're staying on track. Another example here is from pillar 4, our workforce pillar. Under the second strategy, we have the tactic to manage labor costs to control upward pressure on water rates. This one, as you can see, we're still in progress. We're still developing this. We don't know what our strategic initiative for this one is yet, but we do have a sense of what we're trying to accomplish, and why we're trying to accomplish. So this is a little bit of the sausage making, for for full transparency and for an example of what it looks like as we go through this process. So just a couple of quick examples. There's more in your packet that you can review, but I believe that's actually, that's the end of my portion of the presentation. I'm happy to take any additional questions.
I'm going to offer a comment on the workforce initiatives. I very strongly believe in this, not only in the corporate world where I come from, but in government agencies. It's really important when you talk about retention that we are investing in people for the long term. That's what provides you the return on investment from your human resources that you have. And so to that extent, and I've stated this in other public meetings, if we have to pay above average to the market and more consistent with Silicon Valley salaries, whether it's for engineers or whether we're competing for people out in the field against other public agencies, I think that rewarding our employees compensation-wise where they're above market rate is one way of retaining people and retaining the institutional knowledge, memories, how to get things done, how to be consistent. And in the long run, I can understand where people say, oh, man, they're making too much money at this certain position. But I honestly believe that there is a long-term benefit that comes from attracting a good workforce, rewarding them above market rate for exceptional talent. And in the long run, it benefits the district. It helps to lower our costs in the long run. Because every time, if you have higher turnover, then it's churning and it's causing more money to be spent on training.
Comments?
I'm not suggesting you get a pay raise right now, by the way.
I'm not sure I can respond to it,
Well, we're not voting on the implementation plan tonight, although I have some questions of where prior discussions are going to be incorporated here. The one I felt strongest about was a proposal that would happen more than 26 years out, which was the debate on recycled water versus desalination. I didn't see any reference at all in this implementation plan to that discussion, nor to recycled water. Is that accurate?
Yes, this plan covers the next 5 years and is the strategic plan. So that item is in the Water Resources Master Plan, which is a separate document from this.
Yeah, and what the strategic plan does is says, ensure that we have reliable water supply and so forth, and then implement the board adopted master plan. So the Water Resources Master Plan is where we get into things like the portfolio, the pathway forward in order to achieve water supply resiliency now and into the future. So really that's a topic for the Water Resources Master Plan piece.
Okay, so I'll have it.
Which won't be here, right?
These are my comments. And also, there are going to be some dramatic changes, particularly in the power world, in the next few years. With AI, there's going to be $500 billion of investment, capital investment in 2026 alone. $350 million last year, and it will probably continue to grow. It overwhelms everything else. It's a true transformational change. We're going to double the power capacity of this country. And we're going to use relatively inexpensive power sources, such as nuclear, to carry much of that. So much of when when we start making decisions, as we did earlier tonight, on solar, which is a longer term investment, but we have a third party that's going to take the liability, the financial liability for that, not us. God bless them. We'll be back looking at the sorrow and tears. And hopefully we will protect it in that end when the finances of that project fail.
Their stock is doing really well right now.
It may be, but when we kick in, there's going to be a paradigm shift in power. The area, part of that will be reflected in the water supply, desal versus recycled water debate, because much of the cost, or disproportionate of the cost between the two, is in desalination as the power costs drop, desalination. And desalination, there's an article in the past 10 years, has reduced in cost by 45% in the past 10 years. That path is going to continue, where the path for recycled water will only increase as they come up with all of the emerging contaminants, PFAS, pharmaceuticals, hormones, et cetera, that we'll be asked to address. So hopefully planning efforts, we look to the future, not be locked into what the paradigm of what we're confronting today. Look where the puck's going to be, not where it is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? I'll just say I am very excited that this item is finally coming to the board for approval. It's been a tremendous amount of work from all of our staff, from a variety of work groups. I know we had a lot of input from the community as well, and so I just want to extend my appreciation to all the staff for all the work that went into this. And because we have members of the public online too, I'll just mention that when we talk about this being that strategic plan that we continue to reference, you'll see in each of our board packets that we continue to reference the strategic plan, each of the pillars and the goals that we've laid out. And so it's something that we really do try and measure ourselves against. And so it's a very important document, and a lot of thought has gone into it. With that, I'll turn to members of the public. I see we have a hand up from Mr. Ken Nishimura. You may ask your question or make your comment.
Yeah, members of the board, thank you for giving me the opportunity to comment on your 2025-2030 strategic plan. Overall, high marks. I'd like to focus on two pillars in your plan. Under finance, you've included the word affordability. Talk about buzzword bingo in today's politics as a goal. One asks, what is affordability? As we will hear later tonight, the district has a comprehensive program to aid our lowest income customers. But what about those who don't qualify for help on tap? If water rates increase at a rate faster than wage growth, over time, water bills will take an ever-increasing fraction of a customer's household budget, thereby leading to affordability issues. BLS data shows that FY25 wage growth based on figures for total private weekly earnings for the San Francisco, Oakland, Fremont metro area was a scant 0.1%. ACWD rate increases are trending above that. This does not state that the increases are not justified, but that in end, if you ask the absolute question about affordability, it is the rate of increase of water rates versus customer wage growth that will eventually drive the answer. You have also created a new standalone pillar for emergency preparedness, which is a positive step. Under this pillar, you have outlined 4 goals: programmatic, infrastructure, human, and organizational readiness. I would like the district to consider adding a 5th goal, and that is of customer readiness. We live in earthquake country, and as we all know, it is when, not if. While the district has been proactive in hardening its most vulnerable and critical infrastructure, large segments of the distribution network remain vulnerable to earthquake damage. The district should, as part of its strategic plan, strive to further communicate and involve its customers, especially those located in areas likely to suffer significant and prolonged service disruptions, how to be properly prepared for such events. This needs to extend beyond the quote, one should have 72 hours of water, unquote. What customers should do to be truly prepared for a service disruption reasonably expected after a major earthquake. For example, should customers have apparatus ready to collect water and bring it back to their residences from a tanker truck? Simple things can make big differences. Most customers will ignore you, but a few of us will appreciate any additional preparation work we can undertake together. Thank you.
Thank you,
May
Mr.
I respond with a comment quickly? I agree with the latter points of Mr. Nishimura. On the former point that he was making about affordability, could I ask the staff to provide Mr. Nishimura with the most recent study that BOSCA did on water affordability for all of its members and how it's become more affordable over the trend is toward more affordability for BOSCA customers over the years.
We'd be
It's a
happy
very
to-
revealing study.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. It doesn't necessarily reflect ACWD situation sort of one-to-one, right? It's Bay Area wide and so forth, but be happy
Right.
to provide that study to them. to
I
Mr.
think
Nishimura.
it was a wonderful study and we were part of financing that study. And the results were quite surprising to the BOSCA members when it was presented at their board policy meeting and then at the board meeting. And it actually was, I could have a side conversation with Mr. Nishimura on it. But I found it extremely valuable as a study. That water versus other things that people spend their income on in life, the percentage that is attributed to water has been steadily going down over decades in the Bay Area.
Thank you for your comment.
All
Sorry,
right.
Director Weege.
Also in response here, we have another item coming up next on Help on Tap program. But I've long argued that the affordability can be addressed through a modification of the rate structure and the billing mechanism, the property tax. And that would achieve the goals without additional expense of programs, et cetera. Second, we have state policy, which I think is, again, not based on a rational basis. But for example, I do not support the concept conservation as a way of life. Water is a good thing. Conservation, a drought, we're trying to, we're basing it on droughts. Droughts are episodic and should be viewed as a contingency. Shouldn't be reducing it. And when you take a look at the bigger picture, we're addressing 1% of the state's water supply. All of our wringing of hands and programs, gnashing of teeth. M&I is 9% of the total state water. If we do a reduction of 10%, it's less than 1% of the state's water. What is the problem? We're making it so on. In the data world, we have a solution in search of a problem. We're going into data collaboratives. So it's interesting where we are as an institution and state policy is not based on rational economic analysis.
So I do want to get back to questions and comments from the public. There are other members of the public. If you wish to make any comments or ask any questions on this item, you can do so now. If not, I will return back to the board and I will see if there are any final comments before a resolution or before a motion, excuse me.
I'll move staff recommendation if there are no more comments.
Yeah, so our staff recommendation is by motion, adopt a resolution approving the Alameda County Water District Strategic Plan 2025 to 2023 or 2030.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang, aye. Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Thank you, staff. That feels like Monumental.
Congratulations, you all.
That was
You only have 4 more years though before we do it again. And we'll probably start a little earlier even next time. So enjoy the respite while it lasts.
All right, we will now move on to item number 6, which are our reports, starting with item 6.1, board committee reports. Are there any questions or comments from the board on any committee reports? Seeing none, any questions or comments from any members of the public on any committee reports? I see no hands raised. We'll move on to item number 6.2, operational reports. And I do believe we have some comments from staff on operational reports.
Yeah, thank you, President Akbari. We know there's always great interest in our distribution system monthly hardness map, and we also know that you all stare very closely at it, and therefore we know that you saw bars that look unusually high, and we also have members of the public that do the same thing, and we don't blame you at all. And we thought we would go ahead and let you know what's happening with regard to hardness in the system, to save you the oxygen of having to ask the question. So I will turn it over to our Director of Operations and Maintenance, Dan Stevenson, no relation.
I had one question in reference to the operational reports. In the board packet, it shows that we had about 8.3 inches of rain at the end of the month before the current storms came in. So I'm wondering where we stand right now, if that can be provided after Mr. Stevenson.
Yeah,
Sure.
so, okay, not a problem.
So, okay, well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Stevenson, and good evening, everybody. Yeah, the hardness, as I'm sure, as Mr. Stevenson said, has increased. I think everybody here is familiar that the SFPUC goes on local supply, usually about this time of year. They've done an extended local supply, so they went on December 11th, which is reflective in the monthly hardness report. The typical SFPUC hardness when we are on Hetch-Hetchy supply is usually about 10 to 30, and we've seen it up about 90 to 120 last week. So that's not giving us a very big margin to blend down with. So we're making as many adjustments as we can, and we're trying to work with that thin margin. It's just the supply water from SFPUC are hard right now. They're expected to go back mid-March. Right now, March 18th is a tentative date. So we will, this looks like it's going to be our new reality for the foreseeable future. And we'll manage accordingly, so do our best.
Mr. Stevenson, any questions or comments? Any questions or comments from members of the public? I know this is a popular item. If not, then I think we'll address the rainfall.
Sure. So we have had a fair amount of rain since the end of the month. A report was published. So as of January 6th, we have had 11.22 inches of rainfall for the fiscal year, and that actually puts us above average to date. So we'll see what the future holds. But
That's
so far,
that's 3 inches of rain that we got.
yeah,
Wow, nice.
quite a bit of water.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on any of our operational reports? Okay, then with that, we will move on to item 6.3.1, excuse me, Help on Tap Annual Update and Crisis Assistance Program Proposal. I'll turn it to General Manager Stevenson.
Hey, thank you, President Akbari. This is something we do to update the board on a routine basis, just let you all know how the program is going. But tonight's special because we already had Ethan here to talk about strategic planning, so we got our money's worth by sharing this item with the board tonight. And we also wanted to share with the board some of our thinking and direction we'd like to go in a number of ways in terms of enhancements to the Help on Tap program. Our member of the public mentioned the buzzword affordability. And that is something that that we plan to work on some more with the board and the public this year. Again, part of the important thing there is defining what that is, so it's not a buzzword, it's a real thing. But we wanted to kind of test the waters with the board on one enhancement to the overall Help on Tap program this evening. And to do that, we have Mr. Birch yet again presenting this evening. Again, we're getting our money's worth. Mr. Wunderlich, I don't know if you have any other context you want to share before we get started.
Just briefly for this evening, Mr. Birch will be giving us all an update on Help on Tap, as well as this kind of proposed new element of the district's affordability efforts. We are not asking the board for any action on this tonight. Tonight's just an informational item. But based on the feedback we received tonight, we may come next month with an item to officially approve a program enhancement. And so for tonight, it's just informational, and please, any questions, feedback, that's what we want to hear tonight. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Birch.
Thank you, Mr. Wunderlich. It's good to be back. I'm here to talk about, as mentioned, our Help on Tap program. I want to give an annual update on that program and then talk about some next steps. So there's a couple of elements here on the agenda. We're going to review the program, and then I'm going to go through an affordability roadmap for the next little while here, at least the next year. This will include a discussion of a supplemental crisis assistance program, discussion of the development of an affordability policy, and then finally we'll get to some potential further enhancements to our affordability program options. So to begin with the current state of our Help on Tap program, for the last year or so, we've been pretty stable in terms of enrollment. The numbers have gone up and down a little bit, but we began and ended the year with about 1,750 program participants. This has added up to about $710,000 of annual spend. And we, it's the benefit amount is currently pegged to the service charge. So that 710,000 fluctuates a little bit based on the given numbers of billings in a month and all that, but this is the projection for the end of the year. So in order to keep the program as efficiently run as possible, we run a recertification program on a monthly basis generally. And then on a quarterly basis, we remove customers that don't recertify. They of course have the option to then reach out and recertify, but it's monthly and quarterly generally. So this program remains in line with the most generous other agency programs. For the typical customer enrolled in the program, the benefit represents a roughly 75% cost reduction because our typical customer is far more water thrifty than the average customer. So all of that being said, our non-rate revenues continue to exceed program requirements. And based on the stability of enrollment at this point, we are growing comfortable with that status. So here you can see kind of charted over time. December of last year, we were at 1752. December of this year, we're at 1758. And you can see the trend is pretty flat. So when we talk about an affordability roadmap, the short-term thing we're going to talk about is a crisis assistance enhancement to our existing program. The medium term will be developing and considering an affordability policy. And then the longer term thing would be other future program enhancements. But before I get into those new elements, I want to pause and see if there's any questions about the current program over the last year. Okay. So a crisis assistance program. As I mentioned, program enrollment is no longer on the climb that it was on from inception through kind of the end of the pandemic period. We have a gaining confidence that we are able to maintain the current benefit and also look at some enhancements. Our non-rate revenues that are available, which of course exclude the ad valorem tax funding, continue to exceed the program demands. And we are proposing that we begin to carry those forward to fund additional enhancements to our efforts. What that would look like in the short term, as proposed by staff, is a safety net program for customers that face an unexpected financial crisis. We would propose a benefit of up to $200, depending on the outstanding balance, towards a past due water bill balance, up to once every 2 years. And we would initially propose this as a first come, first served benefit. Since we do have, a more limited pool of revenue available, we wouldn't want to promise it in perpetuity. So first come, first served. Program rules would match the Help on Tap program guidelines in terms of eligibility and most likely use the same application, check a different box. And this would have an additional effect of reciprocal enrollment. So customers who apply for one will have the opportunity to be enrolled in the other. Customers who are not enrolled in Help on Tap but apply for and are qualified for the Crisis Assistance Program would automatically then be enrolled into Help on Tap as well. So this would increase visibility and potentially enrollment for that program as well. The annual spend from an arrangement like this is expected to be pretty limited and would remain within the available revenues. This is partially because of the amount of outstanding or the amount of available non-rate revenues, but it's also because most of our Help on Tap customers don't carry arrearage balances. So it'd be unexpected for all 1,800 program participants to take advantage of it in a year. We propose an initial pilot program for a year, just to kind of test the waters, see what uptake is like, see where there's gaps, things we haven't thought of. And then come back with potential revisions to the eligibility criteria, the benefit level. And then if the funds are not drawn down, if participation is low enough that there's substantial funding available, then we could also start to talk about ways that we could enhance it further and maybe target different needs. So if this is something that the board is supportive of, either as described or with modifications, this is something we could bring back to incorporate into the rate and fee schedule effective March 1st. So I'll pause there for questions on this program.
No questions, but I think it's a good idea to give it a try as a pilot, since we do have the capacity to do this, and it would be a good service.
I do have a question. How many customers currently fall into this, or would be eligible for this program and have a past due balance?
That's a good question. So the numbers are a little difficult to come by because our specific income eligibility thresholds kind of cross some different census lines. And the other criteria is that a customer has to be a direct customer, not a renter. So it's all a little bit fuzzy. Based on our program enrollment leveling off, we think we're pretty deep into kind of full coverage of the eligible customers. There's a little more room, I'm sure. But in terms of Help on Tap customers that have an outstanding balance, it's a really small number. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but we can certainly come back with that.
Question. Have we considered expanding the program to review delinquent bills, which we're about to send to a collection agency? See if, have you review those referrals before they're implemented on a case-by-case basis? Because when we do a referral, we write it off our books. So lost income, we can gain 20% of it as non-revenue that you can use in your project. But if affordability were really applied, the affordability issue is somewhat nebulous in the world of different people having different economics, real economic support, some of which is not apparent in their portfolio and economic income. So let me encourage you to consider including that as part of your Help on Tap program to see if there's a way we can reduce the number of referrals to collection agencies.
Sure.
So I have a couple of comments. Ethan, thank you for the presentation and all the research that you put into this effort. You did present it to the Finance Committee. I think that one of the more revealing things that you showed in the Finance Committee is that we've had declining enrollment in the Help on Tap program. And I attribute that, one, we had a surge during the pandemic. But number two, there's a lot of turnover in real estate in the Tri-City area. And a lot of the low income folks that have lived here for a long time, honestly, are turning their homes over to younger people with very high incomes. And so less than 3% of our customers are really able to take advantage of help on tap. And or even 2.5%. So I've suggested, and I would encourage you to take a look at this in the future. It has to be evaluated. I understand that we can't give out the store here, but I have suggested in the past what other water districts are doing. And I did the research to point out 7 different water districts that have these kind of programs that offer them for veterans. And we have about 8,500 veterans in the Tri-City area. Santa Clara Valley and other agencies in the Bay Area offer a discount for people that are medically qualified for certain reasons. And some people with certain medical disabilities actually have to use a lot more water than a normal person for their personal therapy and needs and everything like that. And so I would just encourage us, I'm not saying we have to do it, but investigate what the other water districts are doing throughout the state to offer these supplemental programs that pull people in that are maybe marginal. They're not low income, but they're marginal in our community. Thank you. Thanks for the good work.
I'll just say I agree with actually both directors' comments with Director Weed on minimizing what we send to collections agencies. I think this is a great program to help and address that. And the more we can minimize what we send to collections, the better, in my opinion. And then like Director Sethy suggested, if there's other ways that we can capture more customers into this program, considering that we do have the funding available, I would be very open to that. Ethan, did you have more slides? I do. Yeah. Any other questions or comments from the board or members of the public before we continue on? If not, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, so this is that's the end of this first section, which is about this first program enhancement. But then I want to get at something that was mentioned a little bit earlier, which is starting to put a little meat on the frame of what we mean when we talk about affordability. So this has been an ongoing discussion and issue in water in California here specifically for as long as I've been around. This has been a focus of the board, ensuring that our water remains affordable and that our customers are cared for. We consider this in our decision making. We have programs to address it. It's something that staff discusses every single day in some capacity or another. But it's a little bit nebulous. There's national standards. They're not necessarily applicable to us. By most of the national standards, our water is laughably affordable, and yet I could pick up my phone and answer a call from a customer who has a very different story to tell me sometimes. So we need to kind of find a way to bridge that gap. Not every customer fits into every bucket, and developing kind of a common language around this is a way that we can begin to formalize what we mean by affordability. So later this year, staff plans to return and begin this discussion. Whether that means we are developing a full-blown board policy or whether the board says, actually, maybe we're just going to define this. We're just going to say, this is what we mean by affordability, and that's all the action we need right now. Maybe there's guidelines attached to that. Maybe there's not. That's ultimately up to the board. But what we really want to do is start to flesh out what the board views as our priorities and our understanding of affordability. So that will be later this year. We will return and begin to have that conversation. Any questions about that process?
Question. Have we considered using a water budget formula to determine if someone is utilizing their water in a reasonable manner?
Is that a rates question or is that, John, can you, Mr. Wunderlich?
That sounded to me like, are we doing everything we can maybe to refer our help on tap customers who maybe are using larger amounts of water to our water use efficiency team that I know does kind of complimentary reviews and provide support. So I think that's something we could potentially look into to see if there's more we could do to help them be more efficient with their water use, if I understood the comment correctly.
Well, it's a way of determining the plight and the cause of the plight. If someone is not maintaining their system and they've got major leaks and other problems, suddenly they've got a big bill.
Sure.
They apply to you saying, well, I can't afford this. There are two aspects. One, look at it when we're ready to execute, to write off their billing. Second, see if we can address the problems, which is going to continue on without an address. Water budget is one mechanism to look at this, the water consumption fairly quickly. The number of people decide and say, is this a reasonable water use for this location?
Got it. Yeah. So we do work with our water conservation group. I refer customers to the water use efficiency group to have those conversations. We don't use water. I don't use water budgets per se, but certainly we make every effort to help our customers reduce their bills through lowering their usage.
It's a mechanism for evaluating. There may be some people that can use all the water we can imagine, and that's extra revenue for us. I don't have a personal problem with that, but we. As long as they, but where they do have an economic issue,
well, and
you've got a rationale.
I will. I want to go back to something pointed out earlier that I didn't spend a lot of time on. So our median program participant uses 7 units of water per bill. So the vast, well, our median participant, yeah. So half of our participants are using fewer than 7 units per bill. So a lot of the customers using more than that are in very large households, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. So to your point, they're using an appropriate amount of water for their household size. It's just more. So we have a range of usage within our program, but overall, it's most of our customers who qualify for and are approved for help on tap are very thrifty with their water use.
There are programs such as Burlingame, which went for a while, did not charge for the first 8,000 gallons or almost 7, 8 units. And they had outside funding to support that. Then they dropped it. But the zero tier has been applied in some locations where you don't charge anyone for the first few units of the commodity charge. But there you need an appropriate rate structure, which acknowledges the split between fixed and commodity. So we'll see where we go.
If I may, I think the staff is actually considering it, right? I took a peek at the next slide. I think as part of the affordability roadmap discussion, this will come back up and the board could have a discussion at that time.
And I'll also say all of these things have a place within that broader discussion of what do we want to do about affordability.
Yeah. I would like to bring up something I've brought up before a few times. It's kind of tangential here. It feeds more into what programs Ms. Heides is dealing with. But I really want to see our water district get involved with direct turf replacement and shooting for some grant money that will allow that to happen. Now you see some even large water districts like Metropolitan, Southern California, that have these kind of programs available in San Diego and other areas in Southern California. And you see a lot of communities of areas around our 3 communities where people are not watering their lawns. They're really trying to conserve on water. And yet they don't realize that for $1,500 or $2,500, they could replace their front yard. And every person that does this builds value in real estate. Property values go up where the homes are, dressed up properly. And you don't have a yellow lawn all year long or just dirt out front. And I think that we need to get into the business of selling our customers on a direct replacement program where they see the value that they will incur on their property value, especially on resale of property. And you do see people with good real estate agents that, as they get close to bringing the home to market, will completely redo, their front and backyards at their expense to make the home more marketable. And I think we're really missing out on quite an opportunity in that regard. And the payback to the district in terms of, I don't know how to express it, our customer appreciation for pointing out a solution that actually will, in the long run, will help them make more money off their property, enhance the property value. I think that's something we really, we need to focus on it. Please.
All right. So moving on to the third element of our proposed affordability roadmap here. This gets into, at the end of that year, although we would start talking about it sooner, at the end of looking at this pilot program for a year, depending on where our non-rate revenues shake out and all, we could begin to look at some additional enhancements to that crisis assistance program. To the earlier point, some of our low-income customers struggle with plumbing leaks, and you end up in this cycle of a leak you can't afford to repair becomes a water bill you can't afford to pay, and things snowball. So this is kind of a vicious cycle that leads to additional water waste and customers with outlandish bills and so on and so forth. And this is something that we have witnessed happen. So we've put our heads together and thought, well, what can we do to address this? And what we've come up with is a crisis assistance leak repair program. So again, this would be revenue dependent. This would be in concert with the water use efficiency team, who have also been having these discussions.
Haven't we already had something like this in place with volunteers working with another agency where they go out to residents to fix everything in their home?
Yeah, so
toilet, showers, kitchen sinks, everything.
Yeah, this is specifically the service line that I'm talking about. So let me clarify that. I'm talking about the customer side service line. So not internal plumbing, not fixtures, not replacements for efficiency, but service line leaks. So this would be to dig up and replace the service line for customers that qualify and can't repair.
Are we able to detect those service line leaks with our AMI technology?
We're able to detect leaks based on the pattern of the leak. You may be able to determine like if it's when an irrigation system is likely to be initiated or something like that. But to specifically pinpoint that it's in the service line, I'm not sure that we could do that.
Oftentimes.
So how would the customer know that they have a service line leak?
Yes. So, I mean, these all sort of evolve out of like real world situations that we try and help customers with, but we know at a point, we come to a point where we no longer have tools to do it. And we then try and help them with other community groups and so forth to try and help. Some of these, we're really trying to nip these in the bud if we can, through this non-revenue or non-water revenue source, and have a program that we can just help get them fixed. So in this case, these real world situations, I'm thinking of a few of them right now, where it's the line running from the meter to the house. It's pretty obvious that there's a bunch of water there and you can see it moving, and they have no way of fixing it. And these are maybe thousands of dollars worth of work. Everybody can stand around this hole in the ground and they can see the water coming out. The district cannot go in there and work on private property with our crews and do other things. And the customer simply doesn't have the resources to do anything. And so what we do is we see the odometer just rolling and the bills just stacking up, and it's a really frustrating thing for everybody involved. So the idea, we don't have it fully defined tonight. What Ethan's talking about is, hey, as an upcoming step, these are some of the things that we're working on, but we want to get that read from you all. No, this is wrong. We don't want to do this, or this sounds okay. Bring us more. That's what we're interested in tonight.
Well, if we've got good AMI readings, I would think that somebody could analyze all that data and then, let's say you've got the top 100, you send somebody out and go check on all these customers. You know, see if they're on our service line program first, and then if they're not, then we can make some recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, AMI definitely does help us with a lot of intelligence. It won't tell you where something is happening, right? It can give you a real good sense that a 3/4 inch pipe is busted in half, right? Based upon flow rates, you can get a pretty good idea. So that kind of intelligence, but not necessarily where. But again, just conceptually at this point, we wanted to bounce this off of you and see what you thought.
Let me encourage you to talk to HomeServe and some of their fellow businesses. There was talk at one of the conferences, a couple of the conferences, about HomeServe expanding their abilities to go onto the property in addition to the service line. And if we could sort of find some type of master contract where there are indications of a problem that we can provide then through an insurance policy district-wide, maybe it might help.
Okay, I'll be the first one to answer the question. I think this is a viable concept that we should just see how far we could bring this along and see if it actually makes sense for us as a district. Right, there are always a limited number of people we can help, our financial ability to help, and we have our constraints, right?
I'm with it. I'm curious if we've seen, if we could get any identified data in the past where things like this have occurred. I can definitely see it happening. And I think AMI would help. A constant usage at, daily, particularly at midnight to 1 a.m., probably it'd be an indicator that there's a problem. Do have to be a little careful when addressing those, as customers might see it as an invasion of their privacy. And I think we have to be really careful that they understand we're not there. We're not the water police. We're there to help them. Particularly if we're going in there saying, hey, we read your meter. But I think it's a great idea.
Sethy? Any additional input? I'm also very much in favor of pursuing these ideas. Obviously, I'm very much in favor of seeing how we can expand the Help on Tap program. And so looking at alternatives like this, I think is going to be very intriguing, especially for me. I will now turn it to members of the public. If you have any questions or comments on this item, you can raise your hand in the Zoom app. Seeing none.
Seeing nothing, I just want one quick opportunity for Ms. Heides to share a little bit more context with regard to the AMI data question, these are great suggestions, but I just wanted to turn it over to Ms. Heides to add a little bit more context.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because I know we are doing a lot of work right now to really evaluate the data and how we can sort out what is a leak and what type of fixture. That's ongoing work, but it also involves, I don't know if any of you have actually gotten a leak alert yet, but when you do get one, once it offers you the opportunity to report back on, well, what did you find? And, you know, did you fix it? And I actually had the opportunity to do that at home. And that's the kind of data where we're going to be learning, okay, what is it where someone accidentally left a little leaky hose bib on versus an irrigation leak versus a service line leak. So that's going to be something, some of it we're going to be able to sort out with all the data analysis that we're doing, that Russ Perry and our team and others are working on. But some of it is also going to be over time as we're learning more from our customers about what they're finding out there, so that we can really hone in on what the different signals look like in real time in people's homes and what they're experiencing. So just wanted to clarify that, because we do have a fair amount of information, but it's also something we're going to be building on over time to help our customers sort that out.
Citus?
We know from personal experience, if you have galvanized service lines, they're going to leak. There are portions of this town that was how the homes were installed. So we know that neighborhood or that street is vulnerable to, and it has service. If they have the original service line, they're leaking. So we have some of that knowledge and ability. Hopefully we can pull up from our records as to when these units were built. Galvanized was in practice up until probably 1960. So if it's prior to that date, whatever the date is, we know that they're suspect, and maybe we can work out something with the homeowners to get those replaced as a programmatic issue.
Mr. Birch, do you have enough guidance and feedback from the board that you were looking for tonight?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, did you have any other slides? I think
I have this slide.
Okay.
Which you've already addressed.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Birch. That concludes item 6.3.1. We'll move on to item 6.4, general manager.
Okay, just have a couple of sort of late breaking topics here. One of those is I sent an email to the board and to staff today having to do with Aqua committee assignments. And so we know we had a number of folks that were accepted onto certain Aqua committees. I sent that email out. The other thing, though, that we've been working on this afternoon was just confirming with Aqua that they didn't miss something, because we recognized that many of the names that we submitted for certain committees were all on the back of the form that we used to submit our nominations. None of those made it. So we're just double checking that Aqua got all of the form and they considered all of our nominations. We had, as you know, quite a few. So congratulations to those who made it on to their desired committees. But we are working on a couple of things, just clarifying with Aqua as to what may be going on.
A number of the committees have no cap
Right.
on the number of members.
Correct.
Some do.
Correct. Right. And we did scratch our head because at least one of the sort of denials was on a committee that has no cap. So.
And I will also point out something that our new President Ernie Avila has pointed out. Even if you're not formally a voting member of a committee, you can attend the committee meetings.
Yeah.
You can actually serve on a subcommittee and take an active part in Aqua. I'm not on the Water Management Committee, but I do participate in it, and I get assigned to the subcommittees on important topics. And not only that, our prior general managers, Walt Wadlow and Bob Shaver, encouraged me to go to the board of director meetings. So I would see from a top-down level what was being discussed. And you are an invited guest. They welcome your comments. You're not a stranger, and you actually build relationships in the industry.
Sure. Yeah. Very open. And none of these are actually on the agenda. So I don't want to, I'll just want to buzz through my other couple of comments, but yes, certainly. I just want to make sure the board was aware there's more perhaps to come with regard to those committee assignments.
There was the Legal Affairs Committee where anyone who was not an attorney was asked to leave.
Well, you're an attorney.
So I stayed in.
Okay. The second item up is I recently shared with the board that ACWD and USD were coordinating on having a joint workshop that included both of our governing bodies, both of our boards. Been working on that with USD. It's not coming together as easily as we had hoped. It's going to be a bit before we can get that joint workshop together. So I just wanted to let you know, if you look at our calendar now, those little dates with the blue outline boxes, those are kind of gone because we're still working on trying to set something up. It's probably not going to be for a bit if we can pull it together at all. And then lastly, I just wanted to acknowledge somebody in this room is having their work anniversary, 25 years with the water district. And she does not want me to mention this, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Ms. Heides, our Director of Water Resources, 25 years today. We are very fortunate to have, one of the premier water professionals in the industry working with us, her career at ACWD. So I just want to acknowledge Ms. Heides.
Thank you.
That completes my general manager's reports.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. We will move on to item number 7, director's comments, reports on meetings attended, and agenda item requests.
Nothing from me.
I'm good.
Nothing for me.
I'd like to attend the Federal Affairs Aqua East meeting in the end of February, now that I'm on the Federal Affairs Committee, and can enjoy the 20% discount. Thank you. And it's February 24th to 26th.
Thank you, Director Weed. And I'll just make a quick comment. Congratulations, Sidus. Thank you for all your service to ACWD.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move to our closed session item 8.1, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, threat to public services or facilities, consultation with Information Technology Manager, Chief Information Security Officer, and General Counsel. Our board will now move into closed session.
Operations conference room. We will see you there. I have
all right, it is 9:14 p.m. The board is coming out of closed session. We just concluded item 8.1 pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, threat to public services or facilities, consultation with Information Technology Manager, Chief Information Security Officer, and General Counsel. No action was taken on this item. With that, we'll move to item 9, adjournment at 9:14 p.m. Thank you.